We now come to what is probably the most difficult of all of the fruit of the Spirit to develop and exemplify in our lives, and that is patience. Perhaps one of the clearest commentaries to understanding patience is found in James chapter 1, verses 1 through 12. And in this passage we find that patience will only come and increase through trials. So the wise Christian knows to be careful of what they ask of God, because if it is patience, then God will surely provide the appropriate means to that end. Whenever we think about this concept of patience, oftentimes our mind is drawn to athletes who are training for a variety of different sporting events. And so often we hear the terminology no pain, no gain, meaning that they must train and prepare for that competition. For example, the person who decides to become a weightlifter does not and should not expect to be able to grab and suddenly lift a heavy barbell with the first time that they walk into the gym. Similarly, we would not expect to be able to run a marathon without having first spent the time and the effort necessary to train our bodies for that. Well, we need to understand that whenever we think about patience, we see that patience is the ability to endure the trials that come along without complaining and having the mastery of one's spirit in order to do so. The writer of Hebrews reminds us of the fact that we are sons, and that as sons we are chastened by the Lord in much the same way as we are chastened by our earthly fathers, Hebrews 12, verses 5 through 9. And these relatively brief events compared to eternity, of course, yield important, everlasting benefits. Hebrews 12 and verse 11 says, "Now no chastening seems to be joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." But also, in looking at James 1, verses 2 through 4, we find the words, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." James chapter 1 helps us to understand two significant things in regard to the testing of our faith. First, God does not ever tempt us, because we know that that is only the work of Satan. And secondly, since the Father provides every good and perfect gift, we can therefore conclude again, in most cases, that Satan is the perpetrator of the trials that God allows to come our way. Our God, who is always in control of every situation in our lives, uses these temptations and trials to test or prove our obedient faith. And He promised that it will not be more than we are able to endure, 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 13. But the Apostle Peter gave two reasons which we might suffer grief as a matter of chastisement. We can suffer for either the sake of righteousness or of unrighteousness. Beloved, do not think it strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened to you. But rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings, that when His glory is revealed, you may also be glad with exceeding joy. If you are reproached for the name of Christ, blessed are you, for the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. On their part He is blasphemed, but on your part He is glorified. But let none of you suffer as a murderer, a thief, an evildoer, or as a busybody in other people's affairs. Yet if anyone suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in this matter. I want you to consider the example of Christ. He learned obedience by the things that He suffered, according to Hebrews 5 and verse 8. But consider also the example of the persecutions endured by Paul and the declaration that he made in 2 Timothy 3 and verse 12. All who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. These inspired and sobering remarks should cause us to give some very serious attention to the things that we're facing in this life, and realizing that the difficult times, the trials and turmoils that we face, the temptations that come our way, they are there to help us in developing this trait of patience. Friends, we thank you for joining us for our program today, and have a blessed day.